Hi, this video is on how to make a separate test for students in different categories. Maybe they have different grades in your class. I'm going to do it the easiest way, which is to say that I've got this Chapter 11 test all done, and I'm going to make a version for my IEP kids and 504 kids and make a different version for my main class. So I've already got the test done with all the questions. If I went into the chapter test and I went to edit it, and by the way, it doesn't matter whether it's a test, a quiz, whatever you're using in your class, that you're using the quiz module in Moodle. This one has 26 questions in it, and maybe I feel like this is the perfect test for all my kids, but I want to streamline it. I want to cut some questions out for my IEP kids, maybe my 504 kids, so that because they're maybe given more time, they can still get it done in class. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So I'm going to turn editing on. And the first thing I'm going to do to this test is I'm going to say, I'm going to restrict it to only kids that aren't on 504. So I'm going to go to Edit Settings, and I'm going to go down to Restrict Access, and I'm going to add a restriction. Okay, so you just go down inside the quiz set, edit settings on the quiz. I go down, and so first I'm making this one only viewable by kids that do not have a 504 and an IEP. So I'm going to say add restriction, and I'm going to say group, and I'm going to say 504, and then I'm going to add another one, group, and say IEP, and it says must not match any. So must not match any of 504 IEP. In other words, if they're a member of the group 504 or a member of the group IEP, they won't, and I'm clicking this in the eye, they will not see this test. Okay, I'm going to hit save and return to course. And now when I look back here, it says Chapter 11 test. You do not belong to 504. You do not belong to IEP. So now this test that I have right here is only viewable by students that aren't on 504s or IEPs. And I do that first, and you'll see why. So now I'm going to go edit and duplicate. Now, there's a duplicate that's going to be right underneath here, and it's going to have all the same questions and all the same setup of the original Chapter 11 test. Now, it does put the word copy on it. I'm going to hit the little pencil here. I'm going to take off the word copy because I don't want my students to know they're not on the exact same test as the other students. So now I'm going to hit edit here, and I'm going to edit settings, and I'm going to flip those restrictions down here. Must match any of 504 IEP. And I'm going to poke it in the eye. So if you're not a member of 504 IEP, you will not see this. If you're a member of any of them, 504 IEP, you will see it. So now if I hit save and return to course, you're going to see in this Chapter 11 test, you do not belong to 504 and you do not belong to IEP. And that's all of them. You can't belong to either one of them. And this one says not available, hidden, unless you belong to 504 IEP. So now I've got two copies of the same test. This one has all my questions that I made. This one has all the questions that I made. And now I'm going to go into the test. And I'm going to go to the Edit Quiz button here. And now I'm going to go through and decide which questions I don't want to have my 504 and IEP kids have on their test. Now, I'm going to hit select multiple items so I can just do it real easy. I'm going to say, you know what, I really don't want them to have to do, I'm just going to grab a bunch to let you see. I would go through this a little more stringently than just haphazardly clicking. So I'm going to click all those and I'm going to say delete selected. And now it's still worth 100 points, but now there's only 16 questions on this test. And on the other test, there are 28 on there. Now, when the students come in, it's still going to grade it out of the same number. It's a 100-point test in this case. But I've got two different tests. They don't know which one they're going into. All of them see the words Chapter 11 test. But my students that are on 504s and IEPs now get a different version of the test. Now, I will point out, I've had teachers do this before. If you go to edit the test, and I go in here, if I edit this question, I am editing that question in the database. So I can't go and delete options in here, like let's say this multiple choice question right here. If I go into this multiple choice question, I can't go and say, oh, I only want 3 options on here for my 504 and IEP kids, because this is a database of questions and I'm editing the database. So if I delete this option in here and hit save, it's done it to this question everywhere it applies in any test. So you can't just remove the option and not realize it also affects the other students. So you're removing option number 4 for everyone who takes this question, not just in this quiz. Because one of the great things about Moodle is that we can use the same questions in different assessments. So in that question bank, I would be editing the question in the question bank. Now I can go into the question bank and duplicate questions and make that duplicate have less questions. Like if I wanted, for instance, this multiple choice question, I'm going to take this one and I'm going to duplicate it. So it says it's copy, and I'm going to add the word IEP at the end. And then I'm going to delete some of the options down here. I'm going to delete choice number 4. You can see I've already got all these recorded. So now on this one, this IEP version of the question, this one only has, if I wanted to go and look at this one and preview it, this one only has 3 choices in this question because I made a copy of the question and then I deleted the option in the copy. So if you're a teacher who wants to not only give less questions in the quiz for the IEP students, but also give less options on the questions, which is certainly something that you might want to do, you have to actually go and change the quiz itself. Then I have to make this duplicate copy of the question, and then I have to delete the one that doesn't say IEP and add the one that does say IEP on that particular question. So I did want to point that out as well. So I can go ahead and I can make duplicates of exams. I can make them quizzes, tests, and then I can make them so they're only viewable by students and certain groups. There's also other ways that you can differentiate those things. So if I wanted to do what I just said, I just made the difference on that question. I would go and add the question that had IEP on it. See if I can find it easily. There it is. I would add this question and then delete the one that says the same thing that doesn't have IEP on it. So I have to go and find that in there someplace and delete that one. And then it would just be this option instead. Also, if you wanted to, you could differentiate your stuff by saying, well, it's not based on 504s. I want to have the kids that are not doing well in the class take this other test, and the kids that are doing one. So I don't have to do it based on groups. I could restrict other ways as well. So if I get down here to restrict access, now I did it based on groups, but I could also do it based on grades. I could say, you know what, if you're, let's say it'll be a third quarter summative. If currently in third quarter, you have a grade in the summative category of above 80%, then you're going to see this harder test. This test that stretches you more than the kids who have less than an 80%. So I could do the exact same thing with grades. I could restrict on grades, on groups. Well, let's look here. You can see you can do it based on activities that have been done before, dates of time, grades they have in either categories or in items. You could say, take this test, this pre-test, and everybody who did above a 70 gets this one, and everybody gets below gets this one, kind of thing. You can do it based on things like what city. Do they live in West Manchester, or do they live in New Paris? Which I don't know why you do that, but you could. And you can also do restriction sets, which is multiple restrictions together, that get a little more complicated. But you can see the idea there that for this, and I do this for every single test that I do for the summative at the end of the quarter, I don't go and reduce options. I just reduce the number of questions to give those students on 504s and IEPs more time. And that is it for what I wanted to cover today on how to differentiate automatically in your classroom based on different things like groupings of 504 and IEP students. And that's it. If you've got any questions, as always, please give me a call. Thanks.